All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the broadcast tonight. If you hear a little background noise outside, it's because I'm enjoying this nice June weather, this nice summer weather here in the Midwest. And you may also hear a lot of young people in the background. I live in a college town in Illinois, around Illinois State University, and it's a pretty lively scene down here in downtown, or rather uptown where I'm at right now. But anyway, this broadcast is going to be about pro-aborts, promoting a culture in death and selfishness. And I am thoroughly convinced that pro-aborts promote a culture in death and selfishness. Um, and rather than just only promoting a culture in death and selfishness, um, they promote death to justify and to cater to their selfishness. Yeah, this is what these people do. They can claim stuff like using the life of the unborn, the life of the mother, um, to justify abortion, but that is not the core of why they really support abortion. Okay, they appeal to that argument a lot because they try to, and I've said this many times, and I'm going to keep saying it. They try to manipulate the argument emotionally and pull at the emotional heartstrings to try to lead people down a rabbit trail. But in reality, that is not the reason why the overwhelming majority of them promote abortion. Otherwise, they'd keep it limited to situations like that, and they wouldn't be like, "Well, a woman should just be able to just kill her unborn just because she pleases to." That's the problem here. So, yes, pro-aborts promote a culture of death and selfishness. It is beyond disgusting. It is not about truly a woman's choice. That's a little smokescreen argument. And let's just keep it real here. In this particular hangout, I'm just going to be about keeping it real. Let's remove the cloak of, all these lame arguments and all these lame appeals that they use, like the unborn's parasite or parasitic. The unborn is not a human at conception. The unborn is only a potential person or a potential human being. Um, Mother has a right to her body. All this other crap. Let's just keep it real, because they can try to play all these games and pretend all they want to. The bottom line is they promote a culture of death and selfishness. It literally has nothing to do with anything else. And I'm convinced that they need to use all these pseudo arguments to cater to their own selfish lives. That's what it ultimately comes down to. They can use these pitiful, terrible arguments all day that pro-lifers allegedly don't care about children after they are born, but that's just a distraction. Not only do they not provide any good evidence of such a claim, but it's also, as I just said, as a distraction. Okay, you point to, and even if such were true, it would not justify their position. Again, it's a distraction. You cannot argue two wrongs to make it right. You cannot argue killing her unborn. It's justifiable because you may find selfish pro-lifers who may fight for the life of the unborn, but did not care about helping women with their children or doing anything to contribute to helping women with their children once the child is born. So again, these are a number of different just terrible arguments that they use. It is, but it's at the heart of this whole issue is a death-centered mindset and a selfish-centered mindset. It's about them using their own selfish arguments to promote their personal ideas, their own personal agendas. For most of these people, the heart of the matter is they just want to be able to, not have the responsibility of their actions. It is essentially, them trying to escape the responsibility of their choices. For some reason, they seem to understand this in many other areas in their lives. But when it comes to producing a child or the things which can conceive a child in the womb, all that personal responsibility logic goes out the window. These people are only about themselves. They think they have the right to put markers on, who deserves to have life and who does not, and when people deserve to have life and when they do not. Again, I just want people just to keep it real. Let's not, use all these superficial arguments and um, smokescreen reasoning to get away from the real issue. I am not fooled by such reasoning at all. I am not deceived. I am not deterred. You can't get away with that crap with me. I see the games. I see the mental gymnastics. I see the nonsense. And it's absolutely pathetic. It is beyond just deplorable the deaths they go to justify their insanity. It's a culture of death and selfishness. And they shamefully exploit cases like rape and life-threatening cases in pregnancy as a smokescreen to cover up for, what's really at the heart of the matter. They shamefully exploit a number of different things to cover up and try to, distract from the heart of the matter. It's their own lack of personal responsibility. These pseudo arguments about a woman should have the right to her body, which how in the world are these pro-aborts going to, expect a world in which to continue the human species? The human species is literally built on reproduction, just like any species. The continuation of any species, I should say. It's literally built on reproduction. Um, and it's like they use the fact that, or they just like to say that the fact that a woman reproduces is a curse on her if she doesn't want to have a child. And no, and that's just not true. I mean, nobody's asking her to raise the kid. I mean, but the only thing is, we just ask that people take personal responsibility and don't kill children who did not ask to be there. It's really that simple. And I think no matter how bad the case is, no matter how messed up the case is, you don't, intentionally take the life of the child to cater to your own selfish ways. And one of the things they try to do is, well, if you can justify killing, intentionally taking the life of the child in a life-threatening case, then you can magically justify it in any case. Some of them, well, actually, I have when I'll say this: I've ran into quite a few of them in my lifetime who will try that angle. But to be fair, I've actually came across some honest uh, people here on G Plus who can easily see the fallacy in that reasoning. So you got to do a lot more than just claim that um, abortion should be allowed in any and every case because life-threatening situations can occur. Because even if one grants, you know, intentional killing in life-threatening cases, that doesn't mean that it connects to intentional killing. Let's say if a woman conceived in the act of consensual sex but just didn't want to be pregnant around this time, so she just goes to the clinic and kills the kid. There is no connection between those two cases. It's actually an embarrassment why pro-aborts bring that up. But again, it's just one of those particular cases to where they shamefully exploit it to justify their own lack of personal responsibility, their own lack of accepting personal responsibility. And they call pro-lifers calling pro-aborts to be responsible and to accept responsibility as if it's some sort of hatred, if it's some sort of infringement or something like that. Absolutely not. I mean, we believe that a woman should indeed be able to have as many children as she wishes. A couple should have as many children as they wish to have. But that's not the same as saying that they should be able to kill as many children as they want. And that's the problem. And then, in order to escape from the fact that they're killing children, they need to use all these bogus arguments. They need to dehumanize what we all know clearly is a person, a human being. They need to distort the facts. They need to distract. They need to misdirect everything they can possibly do to get away from the inevitable truth. Killing a human being is wrong for your own selfish reasons. There's a number of different ways to catch them in their sick reasoning, but I don't really think anything is necessary. I just think it's just about keeping it real. You gotta keep it real, people. You gotta understand what is at the heart of these issues. It's a paradigm that we should be able to control who lives and dies to appeal to our own selfish positions. It's a battle of paradigms. You got people who believe in that particular paradigm. You got people that's like, well, no, we should not have the right to, decide who lives and dies based on our own personal wants and desires. And each and every human being should have the right to make that decision on their own and not have it taken away from them, without due process. And like I submit one of the worst things you can do is take that decision away from them before they're ever born. I'm going to post the link in the chat if anybody wants to come into the hang. So here it is. If you want to come into the hangout, Jackson Lavalley, or if Lavelle, or however that's spelled, or however that's pronounced, I mean, you can come into the hangout and we can talk about it. I much rather engage in personal discussion rather than exchanging through a text chat. But there's a link in the chat if anybody wants to come in here and talk about this issue. Yeah, what this is what pro-aborts do. It's about personal selfishness, and they use death to promote their own personal selfishness. It has nothing to do with any of these claims about a woman's right and controlling her body and the unborn's parasite, not really a person or a human being. None of this garbage that they appeal to it, because that's what it is. It's absolute garbage, and I don't give a damn what pro-aborts get offended by that. It's garbage they promote, and I'm going to continue to say it's garbage, whether they like it or not. So, yeah, there's a link in the chat there. If anybody wants to come in, we can talk about this issue now. I'm going to invite a few people in here. Just give me just a moment. All right. Well, we're not going to get into a bunch of endless arguments in this hangout. We're going to keep it real up in here. We're going to point to the core matter of what's really going on. I am not going to allow pro-aborts to use any of these stupid arguments, any of these pseudo intellectual arguments and appeal to fallacious reasoning to get around the real issue here. We got people who just don't care about personal responsibility. We got people who just don't care about uh, being accountable for their own actions. They don't care, and I'm convinced, at least a substantial amount of them, just want to use stuff like abortion to keep themselves, you know, substantial amount of them do use it for that very reason. But whatever the reasoning is, you can't get away, death being at the center of it all, whatever the reasoning may be. And shamefully exploiting cases like rape and, the life of the mother being, in danger. It's really just, okay, off these cases, I'm gonna, justify killing a kid because these things may happen. All right. Good to see you, Hawktie. What's up, man?
I was just finishing a snack. It was restaurant leftovers, so extra tasty. Can't eat restaurant food all the time. Not good for you. But...
Oh, awesome.
So I was just
hold
want to check.
On a sec, man. Wait, hold on a second. I gotta reset. I'm having some problems on my end.
I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me?
Let's see how it goes. It was you said, can you hear me? It was a little. Had you reset?
Yo,
Okay,
hey.
I can hear Jackson loud and clear. We're just
All right, can
we're just checking
you hear
on
me now?
Antonio's connection. It seems
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
5% of that.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just having. All right, you had a
It looks like
question,
it's
Jackson, didn't you?
Yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion on feminists say that it's their body, their choice. My opinion that it's the baby's body, not their choice. What is your opinion on it?
Me, I would say this. Even if we assume that that's true, that's not the same thing as justifying a right to kill, because having a right to something does not mean that you have a particular remedy in which to enact it. Like, for example, we have the right to bear arms, right? But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean we have the right to acquire them or bear them by stealing. A
Yeah.
right does not suggest a remedy. So you can say a woman has a right to her body. I completely agree with that. But the extent in which she can enact that right does not mean she can, enact it by like means of killing, the unborn, for example, or killing anybody. So, she can have a right to her body all she wants, but that's quite a different thing than having the right to kill, without due process. And that's
Yeah.
how you can address that point.
I mean, I think abortion should be punished, in my opinion. It's murder
Yeah.
and it's unjustified whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it should be treated, as any other case. If you kill a born human being, there are certain uh, things under the law in which they would treat, certain cases. Like, I mean, if you just shoot somebody because you hate them or whatever, then you get tried under the law. And I think similar sorts of things should be implemented when people kill the unborn.
I I
Again,
I totally agree on that.
yeah. But yeah, that's how I address that point. And I gotta stress that like not all people who support abortion or legal abortion do it because they are trying to just promote sex like left and right and this and that. But I've come across a substantial amount of people that when you talk to them long enough, that's what's really going on. What's happening is people don't want to held responsible for their own personal actions, and they want to use stuff like abortion, and then they want to piggyback off of horrific cases like rape and life-threatening cases to the mother to shamefully exploit for their own selfish ends. What's at the core of the issue is the lack of personal responsibility, and
Yeah.
they can use whatever lame arguments they want, like the unborn is like a parasite, or the unborn is not really a person or a human. They can use whatever ridiculous claims they want, but that's not really addressing the heart of the issue.
It's
We all know that that's not the reason why most of them justify abortion.
yeah. I mean, it's they can give it up for adoption. They can give it to people who want a baby, but yet they decide to kill it. What is
That's
the
what
good in that?
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly right.
You can at least just give it a life instead of killing it right away when it didn't even have a chance to live or prove itself to you. It makes no sense.
Exactly. And the important thing is don't let people manipulate you with or try to lead you down a rabbit trail with stuff like a woman may have a life threatening issue or rape or anything like that. There are ways to address those points, but the important thing is that most people who use those arguments don't use them because they only think abortion should be condoned in those particular cases. Because if they really truly believed that abortion should not be, if they really truly believed, a woman has the right to, an abortion in general, then they would not shamefully use those cases to justify their position. If they truly believed that, abortion was only permissible in those cases, then they would only use those particular cases. They wouldn't be like, well, I'm pro-choice. I believe a woman should have the right to kill the unborn in any situation, but I'm going to use these two cases to manipulate the conversation emotionally.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen videos online, countless videos, of feminists feminists attacking people who are anti-abortion and saying that you're hate speech and all this stuff. And I realized that they're exploiting them, and that's why they're getting all pissy.
Oh, absolutely. That's what they're doing, man. It's if you disagree with them, it's hate speech, and it's just a bunch of buzzword social injustice warrior. Because that's what I call them. I call them social injustice warriors. Because next to nothing they do is about social or real justice anyway.
I mean, feminist is cancer, right?
Oh yeah, I agree. At least today's third wave feminism version of it. If you're talking about women like Christina Hoff Sommers, for example, I think she's a true feminist who wants true equality.
She's fighting for women's rights in other countries, right?
Yeah. Go ahead, Hawkeye.
Well, I think that's an important and careful distinction to make. Jackson, I've heard you mention feminists a few times, and then you describe some events. I think I know the type you're talking about. Like, you've seen like this? They call her Trigglypuff.
Yeah, like third wave feminists.
Third wave, yeah. It's an important distinction. I'm afraid we've gotten to a point in our culture where the word feminism, or to refer to someone as a feminist, just means like super crazy person, or as Antonio says, social injustice warrior. I'm doing my best to try to, like, when I hear somebody refer to themselves as a feminist or say that some other person is a feminist, I try to pause before deciding which type they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Antonio's reference to Christina Hoff Sommers. I mean, she's great. She has some great material.
And
yeah, I like her, and I don't even agree on everything she says, but I truly believe she is for legit equality.
Yeah. Can I just point something out that I've noticed?
What's that?
Feminism, like Joe said, or Hogtail said, is like means bad nowadays, or something crazy bad for feminists. But don't you think that third wave feminists are kind of to blame for that, because they've done all this radical stuff, and they're making the face of feminism look bad?
Oh yeah, they're to blame for a whole lot of stuff, man. They've poisoned the mind of a whole lot of millennials and youth, and them along with other sorts of social injustice warriors like Black Lives Matter, people who try to basically excuse radical Islam and all these sorts of social injustice warrior groups.
Yeah. They embarrass themselves and they make their own self-image look wrong. And that is why it's perceived as bad to be a feminist nowadays. And then they call out hate speech, right? But yet they're doing hate speech against men and hate speech against cis people who are straight and are white and male. It doesn't mean if you're white, you're automatically evil or angry or privileged at all.
That's right. Here's the problem I have with a lot of these feminists. Like, they'll say that we promote a rape culture here and this and that, but and I don't think anybody in their right mind agrees that women should be able to be raped, or people promote a rape culture here, because most people understand how sick rape is, all right? But these are the same people that will be completely silent about women having sexual relations with boys. Like, we've had regular incidences over the past several decades of women getting caught with sexual relationships with boys in school, all right?
Yeah.
And that's statutory rape. And they don't say anything about that hardly at all.
No, they don't, because it's a woman who is the bad guy. So they don't support that ideology that a woman's a bad guy because women are so perfect in their minds, right?
I guess so, yeah.
And
You don't think those women are being charged? You don't think that there's any sort of social stigma about a
Of
28 or
course they
35?
are.
of course
Of
there
course
is.
they're being charged, and yeah. But the thing is, my issue is how these feminists don't seem to treat the issue. They don't seem to take it very seriously because they'll talk about men raping women all day, but if women rape little boys,
Oh,
they don't
you're
say a thing.
Well, they don't get recognized. That's the problem. They don't get recognized for it at all. There's no protest about that. But apparently, if a woman gets raped, there's millions, or there's tons of protests that happen. But if a boy gets raped, no, nothing
Yep.
happened.
You know, Jackson, a
And then
moment
that,
ago,
and that,
I was commenting that I'm really concerned about this new feminism and like the crazy, I referred to Trigglypuff,
Yeah.
waving her arms around and being all loony and stuff, and I think that's a very destructive type of person, a very destructive social movement. Somebody who embraces a name like feminism, and then when you listen to what they say, they're not about freedom of speech. They're not about equality for the
They want
genders
to take
or.
away. They want to take away the First Amendment. It's what they want. What this count?
No, but no. But I'll tell you. Can I tell you the other force that I'm really concerned about?
Yeah.
And I hear it a lot in some of the things you're saying. You seem to really be drawn to some of the people on the extreme other side. That whenever you hear phrases like, "Oh, well, look at how these people can be bigoted against, cis white men," that you know what I mean? Like there are people out there who speak for equality amongst the races, equality amongst genders, equality amongst whatever, just any, they really want fairness in society. And I see two really harmful groups, the Trigglypuff third wave feminists, and also these other people who will, with that very snide tone, start talking about, oh, well, there can be bigotry against, the cis white male, and who's protecting the cis white male. I hear a lot of that in what you're saying, and it really concerns me because it's a very easy sort of us versus them attitude to get caught up in. I don't know what else to say about it. I guess you're going to do what you're going to do, eh?
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying all feminists are bad. I'm not saying all privileged white men are bad at all. That's what I'm trying to get out, is that not a lot of third wave feminists say that if you're male and you're white and you're straight, then you're automatically evil. But I'm not saying that's every third wave feminist opinion.
Well, go ahead.
what was I about to say, man? No, you can go, man. It's all right.
I think one's as bad as the next. When you get, I understand there's I forgot the person's name now. I don't even know if he or she identifies as a he or she. I don't even remember. But and Anita Scarcesian is somebody who says this too about how, what is it? Everything is sexist. Everything is racist, and you have to point it out to people. Like, I mean, how can everything be sexist? I mean, that's just lunacy. But by the same token, there on the other side, that there are these people who are just as extreme about, pointing out that, well, who's standing up for the white man? Who's standing up for the cis people? Who's standing up for straight people? What about straight pride? Anybody I ever hear that goes on about how, well, we should have a straight pride parade. What, and have a white pride parade? Like, and there are people who do say, well, we need to have more, I guess we can't really call them pride rallies because the term white pride has already kind of been, we have a bad reputation for that. White power is the one I'm thinking of. But you know what I mean? I'm really worried. A couple of things you said there that just really make me worry about that other side. There's a group of people on the extreme other side that are just as crazy and just as destructive. Okay, I'm going to give an example. So suppose somebody says that they read in the paper about a woman who had to leave her job in some government center because of she claims there was sexual harassment in the workplace. Anybody who reads a story like that and goes, well, here we go again, another uppity feminist, complaining about, quote unquote sexual harassment, blah blah blah. But you don't know the story. Maybe there was. That happens all the time. It's and I know a lot of people who are like that. As soon as they hear about an allegation of, racism or sexism or people being opposed to trans people, then they immediately just go, well, here we go again. Oh, I suppose that's racist too. Well,
What
you know
about
what?
the
Sometimes there are
aspect?
racist.
Let me just stop you there. Let me ask you something. What about the aspect of innocent until proven guilty?
Yeah, what about it?
Well, I mean, you can't always assume that if a woman claims to be sexually assaulted, then it happened. Just like you said, at a government workplace, if she's sexually assaulted, doesn't mean it happened, but it's plausible.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
also
Well, I mean, just to strictly speaking, on the innocent until proven guilty, that refers to kind of a procedural thing in courtrooms, and they start from the presumption of evidence, presumption of innocence, and then evidence accumulates to a tipping point where they would then determine the person to be guilty. But in the absence of evidence, they just say, well, we're going to stick with our presumption. But a lot of people misinterpret that to mean we have to assume that they're innocent, and it's only courts. It only has to do with that very specific thing about how there's going to be a determination, a finding of innocence or guilt, or guilty or not guilty. But as far as the rest of the world, I hear Americans say this all the time, where they're like, well, what about innocent until proven guilty? Well, no. I mean, but my point about when I said, like, if you hear a story about a woman who left her job and then sued for sexual harassment, the okay, well, was she really a victim of sexual harassment? And the answer is, I don't know. You'd have to know more about the story. But as soon as there's a woman who makes a claim of sexual harassment, there's going to be there are going to be some people out there that say, well, here's another one. Women just can't get a fair shake these days. If you put a woman into a workplace with men, she's going to be sexually harassed. So good for her that she's suing, because those men are guilty. And by the same token, there's going to be other people who are going to say, oh, well, here we go again, another uppity woman, probably a
yeah,
hairy-legged feminist that's making false accusations of sexual harassment. Well, how do we know either of those things? Right?
yeah.
That's why people sue, so that they can, try to work it out before a trial. And if they can't, well, then they go to court and they get the facts out, and the court figures it out. But there are just too many
Yeah.
people who will just make a decision on their own one way or another, because look what those feminists always do.
I mean, a lot of stuff that feminists make up or a lot of stuff that feminists say can be double-sided, just like you said. And some of that stuff needs to be addressed.
It could
They
be
want
propaganda.
they want equality between genders, but if a woman, I want you to listen to this. But if a woman is sexually harassed at work, then I know a lot of people would be like, "Oh my God, really? What?" But if a guy is sexually harassed at work, not many people take it seriously.
See, it's stuff like that I'm concerned about, because where do you get that? There are I mean, for one thing, you can't compare the frequency with which these things happen, right? That you think that it's 50-50 out there, that when there's actual sexual harassment that makes it so that the person just, they're not being treated fairly at work, and if you get to the point where they're going to quit their job, you think that happens, men are as often victims as women? You think that's 50-50? And second, do you think that when a man's a victim of it, that everybody just sort of chuckles and shrugs their shoulders and says, oh, well, whatever? Like, no, there are men who've won those claims as well.
Well, there does seem to be a culture to where it's not quite as pounded upon, for men to, have the right not to be raped as much as women. Like, it doesn't seem to be looked at the same way at all. I mean, almost every time you see something like on TV, like what will you do? Will you stand up for her or something like that? They'll have a commercial or something like that to where, like, will you stand up for her and whatnot? Like, how often do you see stuff like, will you stand up for him? How often do you see that? You don't ever see that, but you see that almost all the time with women.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, okay. Well, let's even use the rape thing as an example. I think that if one of us right now were to, let's talk about somebody we don't like. I don't want to pick an actual name, but let's say we're talking about some woman that's in politics, or say you heard about some woman that committed a
Hillary
crime.
Clinton.
No, I just said don't pick an actual name, because now that really taints the example I'm about to use. Well, okay, what do you want to use, Hillary Clinton? Suppose somebody says, I hope somebody like holds her down and rapes her. Like I think she needs to be just raped against her will, kicking and screaming. That would be awesome. The rest of us would go, what is wrong with you? Like, that's not a cool thing to say. And yet, culturally, it doesn't seem to be such an awful thing to say about men being victims of rape. So when you hear about somebody that committed a crime and they say, oh, I hope he goes to jail and I hope he gets like raped every day. And people will say that, and nobody, people don't go, wait a second, what are you wishing on this person? Like, has anyone else here in the room ever said that? Like, I hope when that guy goes to jail, I hope he just, or even people making a joke about drop the soap, stuff like that. Do you think that's funny? Like, I mean, men getting raped?
No, there's nothing funny about that because, like, yeah, someone was a bastard for raping a woman, but at the same time, he could regret, what he did, and he could like feel really bad about it, and he does his time, and then you got people jumping all over the dude, hope bad things happen. I think, yeah, that's equally as harmful. I absolutely agree.
Well, even if he doesn't feel bad about it, is that what you want your prisons to be like?
Still,
like, let's say you were the governor of your state, and you could say, well, what are we going to have in these prisons? Are we going to have color TV and Xbox? Are we going to have hard labor? Like, how do you want your prisons to be? You know what we should do? What we should have in our prisons? A lot of bum rape. I think we should just have people like roving from cell to cell raping the other prisoners. Yeah, that's what I want for my state. Is that what you want for your state? Even the worst criminals shouldn't be victims of rape as like, well, they deserve that. Yeah, and yet we'll kind of joke about it. But the thing is, when we recognize this difference, that yeah, there are people are more protective of women when it comes to an issue like rape, or let's dial it back a bit to sexual harassment in the workplace. People are more protective of women, and that's a traditional stereotype. And that's the kind of thing that yeah, we need to sort of look at as a society and go, okay, well, we've been dealing with this issue. Like, we used to not even do anything about sexual harassment in the workplace for women. They'd say, oh, well, he thinks you're pretty, whatever. And now we see it as a pretty serious thing when a woman comes through and says, well, look, this, somebody at work has been doing this and it makes me uncomfortable. We need to deal with it. That's a fairly recent change in our society. And, maybe we need to look at it too, to make sure that men are included in that. But that's a very different thing from saying, like, oh, of course, if a woman ever, starts to sob that somebody sexually harassed her, then everybody flips out. But nobody ever says a thing about it if a man does it. And to sort of be defensive about how, well, look at how society is totally geared against men. And maybe that's the difference. That's the difference I'm looking for. Is that it's one thing when you point out a difference how people react, but when it's part of a narrative that includes, like, oh, men are the victims, oh, white people are the victims, oh, cis people are the victims, that's bullshit. Men, like cis white men, straight, whatever labels people will throw on that, are not the victims in society and don't need to anybody who whines about being the victims, generally they're not really a victim, especially when it's that sort of like, I'm tired about hearing about the blacks' rights and the gay rights and the trans rights and the et cetera, et cetera.
But that's what this whole culture has turned into. People who have been victims of bad things, and turned into huge just out of control movements. Like you won't find a race of people or a creed of people, a size of people, age of people, personal belief. You won't find anybody of any race, age, religion, creed, color, none of that stuff. You won't find a single person who hasn't been the victim of some sort of mistreatment or something like that. But it's quite another thing to take all sorts of cases and extrapolate necessarily almost all of them into some huge social issue for rights and justice and whatnot. I mean, like, it'll be like, for example, like we have a culture that is against bullying. I agree, but at the same time, I was bullied in school. I'm not gonna go around using my experiences, being bullied as a school to try to, blow this up into some huge social justice issue. I want to use my the fact that stuff was done wrong to me in order for me to get like advantages in society, and I think that's what a lot of these groups are doing. Like black people have been mistreated. You have the Black Lives Matter movement. I feel like they're using the fact that they've been done wrong in society to gain advantages. I think
Yeah.
that's what this crap is only about, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty. I always hesitate to, because again, I'm not in your country, but I have looked into Black Lives Matter a little bit recently, and just every time I look, I get a little more sort of worried. Like, do they have the support of people? Because they just come across as crazy. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong particular clips that make them look bad, but they don't seem to be helping anyone.
They don't help anyone, man. A lot of these people aren't, out, and I'm gonna make an exception to people like a psychopath atheist. Like, I believe he's truly about you know Black Lives Matter, but I don't think he's just only about Black Lives Matter. I think he truly believes in the upbringing of blacks and the fair treatment of black people. And he does a lot of things in his community. I think he truly believes that, but I'm not
Well,
seeing that for most of them, man. I think most of them are just trying to just stay in the victimized mindset and basically saying, well, because this was done to me, I'm going to do things like disrupt your speaking events. You're not going to get a right to speak. You're not going to get a right to get a job before me. And they're doing this sort of stuff. But people like Psychopath Atheist, he truly believes in equality. And he's not going around using the BLM movement to try to, take advantage of other people and to stop other people from speaking.
well, I always had
Yeah.
on Psychopath. I've always had a good read on that fellow. I think he's reasonable. Like, I think he's for fairness. Does he identify as a? Maybe I shouldn't ask you to speak for him, but from your conversation, do you get the impression he identifies as like with the BLM movement, or I didn't
Not
get that impression. I
um
didn't think he was.
not the. I would say he believes Black Lives Matter movement, but I guess I should ask him. I think he did say that. Well, I do know that he he's an activist on behalf of blacks, but I guess I should ask him if he would align with the Black Lives Matter movement. For sure. But I do truly believe that there is a movement from black people that do believe. It's just like Christina Howe Summers. She believes in true feminism, true equality.
Equality, yeah.
It's the same
Yeah.
thing with the blacks. You got people like Psychopath Atheists who truly believe in true equality for blacks, and people like that. Or you'll have people who truly believe in equality for like gays. People who fight for true equality, and then on the other side of that, you have people using homosexuality to gain advantages and to promote inequality.
Groups with an agenda can stir all kinds of propaganda.
Can I?
What's that?
Can I
I said groups that have an agenda can stir all kinds of propaganda.
Well, irrational agendas. Yeah, I agree. What were you about to say, Jackson?
um can I share my opinion on the Black Lives Matter movement? If
Yeah,
that's
go
okay.
ahead, man.
So I agree with the overall statement that we should eradicate racism on the force or law enforcement. But the actions that they did in order to promote that was horrible. I mean, I saw a video of this police officer who was injured by a rock or a stone that someone threw, Black Lives Matter protester threw at the officer, right? And then
Yeah, yeah. What about it?
she was being carried off to the hospital in a car. But there's all these Black Lives Matter protesters who are throwing stuff at the police officers who are trying to get her to the hospital, throwing stuff at the car, throwing trash cans, throwing rocks, throwing bottles, anything they could find. And I just said to myself, if you want to stop violence against black people, why are you doing this? There is no point in violence if you want to stop violence.
That's absolutely right. If you want to see a better example, you got to be a better example.
Yeah. And there was also this another video where there's these people eating breakfast inside this sort of kind of office sort of space, like a Denny's downtown. And there are these bunch of Black Lives Matter protesters running down the street, throwing trash cans, all sorts of stuff into the restaurant, breaking the glass, scaring tons of people. And then I saw police officers with riot shields and bulletproof vests on. And I'm like, does it have to go this far? How many people would have died? How many people would have gotten hurt or seriously injured from that? You can't promote to stop violence with violence. It makes no sense.
That's right. We never have had a culture that was entirely racist anyway. Even, when we had the horrific mark of slavery in our country here in the States, that's just one of the most horrific things we ever did, in our culture of people, an entire culture of people who were racist. It was like maybe 3% of all white people who actually even owned slaves at all, and there were so many people who were white who died trying to stop that from happening.
Yeah, I mean the Civil War. There's so many men who died fighting for the right for slavery not to happen. And it's like, how can you perceive slavery as all white people did?
And exactly, and that's one thing that this looked at. They say, well, we have a racist history. Well, yes, but you know what? We have a non-racist history too. It's not just a one-side thing. This is what happens with a lot of people who, claim to be activists for stuff like Black Lives Matter or, third-wave feminism. They only want to look at one side. They'll be like, well, we got a rape culture. You got some people who have done. You got people who have raped. That's not the same thing as having a rape culture. Like we have people who are racist. That's not the same thing as having a racist culture. But even if you want to say there was a racist culture, there was a non-racist culture too. Stop looking at one side and trying to paint a broad brush to justify your nonsense.
No one supports rapists. Any rapist that's found. Anyways, sorry about that. I was gonna say that it's not a rape culture because we don't support rape. Not every single person in this country supports rape. It's not a culture norm to be supporting rape and being like, yay, rapist, you did it. Rapists are prosecuted and charged with their crimes. And we don't support that. We don't support people going, yeah, rape's awesome. No one does that.
Well,
no one.
Having said that, I think a useful exercise. I know whenever I hear something like that, and I think this example, like when people use the term rape culture, I think, what? What could that possibly mean? I mean, it's certainly not a rape culture. Like, yeah, there are some rapes, and there are too many. However many there are, people argue over the number. What's the number? Too many, right? But then somebody says, "What? It's a rape culture." I go, "What? That sounds so insane. I must be misunderstanding it." And it's worth looking into, like, what do people mean when they say something like that? Now, having said that, with that particular example with rape culture, I've looked into it to try to figure out what they mean when they say it, and I still cannot figure out anything sensible from it. It does kind of sound like they're saying that just the very structure of society encourages and endorses raping.
It's not like there's a parade for rapists around the
Well,
world.
I don't think that's what they're suggesting, but yeah, just the fact that there's this idea that rape is just going to be part of what happens.
Yeah, like Antonio said, sure, rapes do happen in the United States, but it doesn't make the entire culture rapists.
Here's the problem. Is they like to. Yeah, the problem is they like to treat certain things in a collectivist mindset. Like, for example, unfair treatment of women in the workplace. And I'm not saying that unfair treatment of women haven't happened in the workplace. Well, what they like to do is they like to take a few cases of men unfairly treating women in the workplace, and then say like, you see here, you got men that treat women wrongly in the workplace, and they take like individuals and treat them as a collective. That doesn't mean that men treat women wrong in the workplace. That just means a few bastards treated women wrong in the workplace, and they treat men as a collective. And that's what happens with a lot of cases. When you talk about stuff like rape culture, they want to take certain people who have raped individuals who are raped and treat them as a collective, and that's wrong.
Yeah. Has anyone here heard of the 1 in 5 thing?
Yeah, I've been following that pretty closely. Why?
I believe it was a myth, and it was actually 1 in 53 something, 53 point something. And I just thought that's something that feminists, third wave feminists, not all feminists, I'm saying some third wave feminists use for their argument as where we live in a rape culture where rape happens to everyone, every woman. 1 in 5 women are getting raped when their first day or their first year in college, and it's just not sensible.
Yeah.
What is your logic behind that?
Well,
One's raped.
Sorry, you broke out. Sorry, I started to interrupt you there. I didn't realize you were still.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
The author that Antonio had mentioned about 20 minutes ago, Christina Hoff Sommers, has written. She wrote a book called "Who Stole Feminism," where she talks about this phenomenon of feminists, or really in any social movement, when you start throwing out misinformation that you think is helpful to your cause, generally speaking, it never is, because then the spotlight turns on how correct or incorrect the information is, and it takes away from the thing you're trying to talk about. And yeah, the numbers you're giving are accurate in that it really is a tenfold difference. So is it 1 in 5 or 1 in 50-ish? That's 10 times as many. And as I said before, whatever the number is, that's too many. Even if it is only 1 in 50. I'm going to say only 1 in 50. That's 2%, man. That's you want a 2% chance of getting raped when you go to school. But the problem is when people are running around saying, oh, it's 1 in 5, it's 1 in 5, and then somebody else points, that seems awfully high, and people look into it. Well, now we're arguing over whether it's 1 in 5 or 1 in 50 or 1 in 500 or who knows. And it takes away from the central issue of, well, what are the nature of these rapes? How do they come about? Is there a way that we can avoid these things? If it is 1 in 50, can we do something so that next year it's 1 in 500, and something the year after that makes it 1 in 5,000? Like, can't we work towards a zero rape goal? And no, we can't. Not while we're arguing over this 1 in 5 statistic, which I do agree with Christina Hoff Sommers and other people who've spoken about this. It's not 1 in 5. It hurts their cause for them to make stuff, to circulate misinformation like that.
I'll tell you what really ticks me off is when they're making these claims. Like, for example, when it's suggested, what women and what people in general could do to, decrease the chances of something bad happening to them. They want to treat it as, well, are you like victim shaming? I'm like, well, no, I'm not victim shaming. All I'm saying is there are factors in which you can control where you can take certain actions, to prevent yourself from possibly getting into a said situation.
Yeah.
And even when you implement the factors that you can control, you still may end up in a bad situation. But it's better to act on the factors you can control than to just sit up there and be like, well, you know, I'm not going to act on the factors I can control, and people should just, you know, not do bad things.
Yeah.
Well, that's just not realistic. It's better to act on what you can control than to not do anything and let other people control the situation. You not do anything. It's not, you know, saying that you're promoting victim shaming or anything like that. It's just saying things like, well, if things like carrying around a pistol will decrease your chance of bad things happening, you didn't carry a pistol.
Well, if true, but yeah, I got to say something, and I do have to go, but it's just funny you mentioned that because more than a year ago, maybe 2 years ago on the Magic Sandwich Show, we got into this big, a couple of people called in and were really upset about this because we were talking about how to reduce the rape rate, and the thing is, it's not just an issue like that. No crime is ever committed in a bubble, right? Like if you ask me, well, what's the root cause of rape? There is one root cause of rape, and that's rapists, right? But it's always in a constellation of things, and it turns out that amongst those things is alcohol. The most, rapes are not normally, a woman walking down the street and then somebody drags her into an alley. That's not the most common, and that message has gotten out successfully, right? That those sort of incidents are very, very rare.
Right, stuff like that and catcalling and whatnot.
Yeah. So now the message is getting out to be like, well, no, there are a lot of women are victims to other types of assaults that happen at things like on college campuses, and these are the things that need to be looked at and not just brushed aside. So that's big progress. And we were talking about this on the Magic Sandwich Show, and then a couple of the people who were watching were pretty cheesed about it because they immediately were jumping on this blaming the victim thing. And I get that. I totally get the whole blaming the victim thing. Like if there's a woman that gets raped, and you're like, what? You heard about what happened? And you said, what happened? She says, well, she was doing this, and then she was doing that. Oh, well, wait a minute. So she was leaving that bar, and she walked over to she did what now? Or she was wearing what dress?
Yeah, that's wrong. You don't do that.
Yeah. I know exactly, and people, sensible people recognize that. You don't blame the victim for stuff like that. I've used the example of, and I take out a couple $100, and I'm walking away from the bank machine, going 20, 40, 60, 80, and counting up cash out in front of me. If I get robbed, someone's going to say, maybe you should have put that in your pocket. Now, is it my fault I got robbed? No. Who's to blame? The criminal, right? And it's the same thing with rape. But the thing is, it even goes a level further than that, because in that view, criminals are looking to commit crimes. But a lot of times with rapes that happen, a lot of times it's the circumstances, and you can change the circumstances so the rape doesn't happen at all. And a lot of it has to do with educating young men about consent and things like that. And anyway, here's the point I wanted to make, because I was just kind of energized about this, because this had come up on, as I say, on the Magic Sandwich Show, and at the time, two of the panelists, so there's me, I have a son and a daughter, and then one of the other guys, Concordance, has a daughter first and then a son. And we both made the point on the show that, what we're trying to do here? You can go ahead and squawk about blaming the victim all you want, but as a dad, I figure I want to make. Actually, I'm going to say this. I'm going to correct it. That type of a rape, I need to rape victim, and I need to raise my son not to be a rapist. Is that not? Yeah. Of course, now in hindsight, I really raise them both not to be victims and raise them both. But I'm just saying, in the context of that scenario, I think when you put it, sort of point it right at people's kids, and you go well, we don't want to blame the victim, but guess what? About what life is like in college, to make it so that they're not victims or perpetrators. Mm-hmm. Right. But I'm sorry, I do have to step away here for a moment. So it's good chatting with you guys.
All right, thanks for coming in, Hogtie, man.
Yeah, thank you. So. All right.
Yeah, but there's always definitely factors you can't control, and if you can't control them, it does help a lot. And Yeah, there. But again, like I said earlier, you'll have people that'll treat that as victim shaming, and like, no, it's not victim shaming. Like, for example, if you're like camping, right, and
Hmm.
you don't know if you're out in the woods camping, if you might encounter like a dangerous bear or whatever type of creature. So what it's best to do is if you're going to camp, with the potentiality that you may encounter a dangerous creature, you might want to have a like loaded weapon or something with you to protect yourself. Now, you could still get mauled by a bear
Yeah.
if you have a gun, but at least you decrease the chance of that happening. As opposed to if you did not have one, you may still get mauled by a bear even if you do have one. But
Yeah.
it's better for you to have one than to not have one, because there's factors that you can't control, and you be like, okay, if I can't control these factors, I may be able to shoot the bear before he has a chance of mauling me. When I'm camping, and I
Yeah.
think that's how it's like. We're not blaming the victim, if something and still happens, but at the same time, to just outright ignore factors in which you can control and don't act on them, that is irresponsible.
I mean, you can't. You have to at least acknowledge that maybe they did have some parts in it. Like, as he said, if you're counting money aloud that you just got out of the bank and you're counting it aloud, of course someone's going to be like, do I want that money? Should I steal it? All this stuff. I mean, some
Yes,
aspects have to be acknowledged.
that's right. I mean, it'd be like, yeah, in a perfect world, I could go up into the hood in the ghetto and be like wearing all these fancy chains and all these expensive clothes and just waving money in the air like all crazy. In the perfect world, well, I mean, first of all, in the perfect world, there probably wouldn't even be a hood ghetto anyway. But
Yeah.
just for the sake of this argument, in a more sensible world, I should say, you'd be able to walk in the hood and in the ghetto and waving money everywhere, and, like wearing all these expensive chains, riding around a Lamborghini or something, and nothing bad happens. But that's not the world we live in.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, people are always
honestly,
going to have the thoughts of, what if this is two-sided and you are the one to blame, and then there's other people like, no, you can't victim shame, and we have to always, always, always look at both arguments, look at both points of views, and see what they have to offer, instead of just automatically assuming, oh, you're the victim, you're gonna stay the victim, no one wants to, blame you for anything, but there's always two
it's
arguments to it.
exactly, and it's definitely not your fault. If you decide to go around waving money and expensive chains and diamonds and whatnot in the hood, and you get shot or robbed or whatever. I mean, I'm not blaming you for that happening to you, but
It's
at the
it's
same time, you can't be like you can't just entirely be like, well, maybe if I didn't go to that area in the first place doing that, in which I knew that there's a very high likelihood of that happening. You can't just ignore that.
Yeah. In
Like,
this situation, you get robbed in the hood because you're carrying around all this expensive stuff, right? You know,
yeah, this is how people act. You can't just ignore how people act in certain areas just because you want to try to do whatever you want to do. That's not reality. You got to deal with the fact that people who tend to live in areas like this have a certain type of way that they live. That's why these communities are run down as they are, because they're always trying to take and steal from everybody else and kill to get stuff from anybody else.
yeah.
And if you just
You know,
put yourself as
of
a
course,
target,
you're a victim of a crime.
what'd you say? Hold on a sec. I'm gonna try to reset here.
Yeah. Are you Republican or liberal? Just a
Who,
quick
me?
question. Yeah.
Um, I used to identify more as a Republican, but I consider myself more as a constitutional conservative. I'm
Yeah.
not really so much about party affiliation as I used to be.
Well, I don't know if you've known, but I'm only 12, but yet I know a lot about politics. I watch tons
They,
and tons of presidential debates, and
that's good.
I'm personally Republican because a lot of Republican presidents have done a lot of good in this country, like Theodore Roosevelt and all these other presidents who have done good for the country, and yet some Democratic presidents haven't really, shown the best they can do sometimes.
Well, it's historically proven that Democrats, were behind racist groups like the KKK and whatnot, and
Hmm.
there's a whole lot of very very sick roots in the Democratic Party. I mean, it's gotten to the point to where you can hardly tell the difference between the two parties because I mean, um, there's a whole lot of very very corrupt Republicans today, and I think a lot of these spineless people are running the party into the ground. But the um, the original roots of it, like if you look at the original roots of like the Democrat Party as opposed to the Republican Party, there was a whole lot of black people who was behind the founding of the Republican Party. If you do your history and research, and it was sort of meant to be a counter to these racist Democrats who like wanted to keep people on the plantation, wanted to keep blacks on the plantation.
Yeah.
They were racist then, and many of them are still racist now. And a lot
Yeah.
of black people don't know that.
And that's why, personally, at my school that I go to, many, almost all of the kids at my school hate Donald Trump. And they say, oh, he's going to build a wall. Oh, he's racist towards Muslims. But they can't back it up with claims, quotes, or evidence at all. And yet I tell them the evidence. I tell them what he said. And then they continue to be like, oh, but he's still bad and racist.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, man. And you remind me a lot of myself when I was a kid, because I used to, be involved, in watching a whole lot of politics and stuff, ever since I was like probably around 14 or so years old. But yeah, man. And I will say this: I am no Trump supporter, but in no sense do I believe he's a racist or anything like that. And I don't appeal to, making claims without evidence. I ain't going to call him a racist, or I'm not going to say that he wants to ship people back to Africa, which has been said. A lot of these things are just flat out freaking stupid. And that's one of the main things that, liberals, a lot of liberals like to do, is they like to, play the race card, and they like to play the bigotry card. They like to play, all sorts of hate cards in their deck. And it's getting to the point to where people are seeing through their nonsense, and they can't use stuff like the race card anymore because when they try to use it, it gets declined.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Not
go ahead, man.
logical whatsoever.
Yep. Christopher Hitchslap, welcome back, man.
Welcome, Chris.
I was typing in the side chat here. You were giving some examples of logical ways to avoid being the victim of a robbery.
Uh-huh. What do you want to say on that?
To prevent herself from being a victim of rape, what do you think she should do?
What's that?
What should a woman do to prevent from being victimized as rape? I mean, it almost sounded for a second like she, there were some steps you could take to prevent this, and I was wondering. I think you said carrying a pistol or something like that, but
Yeah, that's for starters. Blow the man's brains out.
I mean, that's also a part of gun control nowadays.
Well, it sounded like you were, when you were making the case, if you went through the hood waving your money in the air, that you were shouldering some burden of responsibility for being
Well,
robbed.
to a little,
And
to a certain extent, I would say yeah, because you can't sit up here and like just like pretend that there isn't an element of of twisted things that happen in rundown communities where you are prone to such things like that happening to you. You can't just just put that aside, because yeah, I mean anybody would like to be able to just walk around a community waving money in the air and whatnot, but in the real world that's not gonna fly.
how does that
And
compare to the rape thing? That's what I'm
There are
wondering.
factors in
the
that.
fact is, there are certain factors in which you can't control. But ultimately, if something, if you still act on factors you can't control,
What are
and
those
stuff
factors?
and stuff still happens to you,
Such as
then
weight.
you're not the victim.
What are
Or
the
maybe
factors?
it can help for you to like if you want to go to a club at night, maybe it can help that you go with people that you trust, the strength in numbers, something like that.
Okay, because it sounded like I mean, when you were talking about victim shaming and stuff like that, that
Yeah.
it sounded like that she does have some responsibility to keep herself out of scenarios where things like this could happen, and
Well,
I just don't
I, I would
I
look at it
don't know if I
as
agree.
It does seem like
I,
we.
I would look at it as you have some responsibility to act on factors you can't control. That's what I would say. Just like if you walking through the forest or whatever for whatever reason, you can lessen the chance of something bad happening to you, like by a wild bear or something, by having a gun on you. If you,
Right.
If you
Well,
do
let's talk.
encounter,
yeah,
But you keep on giving analogies, except for uh, well, I guess you did give one analogy about
can I
going
say
with people
something,
you
Antonio?
trust
Antonio,
go
to the
ahead,
club.
Jackson. Yeah,
okay.
go ahead, Jackson.
Christopher, whether or not, yes, she was a victim of rape, okay? Let's just say that she was raped. There has to be some sort of factors, or maybe something, I don't know, that she could have, like, if the woman in this case was wearing, like, really revealing clothes and all the stuff and she got catcalled, well, then that's probably the reason that she got catcalled. I mean, men are
Okay, I'm not
more.
going to have this conversation, but I will. I
No,
will.
well, hold on.
You're
I
avoiding it.
wouldn't.
There's too much
I
of a divide. Really,
I see.
I'm gonna
I see.
respectfully bow out of
Well,
this
You're
hold on.
making it
conversation.
seem like we support rape. We don't.
No, and I'm not saying that at all. That's not what I'm saying. But
Well,
I've
You're,
just
I
consciously
wouldn't agree.
decided to
But
not have it.
hold on.
yeah,
I see where you're going, Jackson. But I wouldn't necessarily use the argument to have revealing clothes or anything, because I mean I think we can make an argument that women are no more or less or no more or less prone to rape by revealing or not revealing clothes. I wouldn't necessarily make that argument. I see what you were trying to say, but I don't really think that's an argument we can use, because I
I'm,
think if
I'm,
someone's going to be a rapist, they're going to want to rape a woman whether she's wearing revealing clothing or not.
yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have made it. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. I know you're not a rape apologist.
I don't support
I
rape.
know you're not, but I see the point you are making, and even I once myself made that point. I know
Yeah,
I get where you were going with that, and believe me, I do understand. And that does not make you a rape apologist or a victim shaming apologist whatsoever.
yeah.
But it,
I don't support rape whatsoever.
but there is another element to it. Like that being said, you do have people that will promote, sort of a promiscuous culture. Like you got people out there that think women should not just women but people in general should have the right to go around walking around naked in public.
Yeah.
And then they'll say stuff like, well, the body isn't inherently sexual or anything like that, and they'll use bogus arguments like that. I mean, when they when they here's the problem. They'll try to say that if a man, is enticed by a woman's body and whatnot by looking at her body, then she was well, then he is just a sick bastard, who didn't want to control himself because he got sexually aroused by looking at her body. But at the same time, then they'll be like, well, a woman who's like showing like half her cleavage, at a club or something, isn't trying to attract other people, and that's just absolute bullcrap.
Mhm.
And then they'll try to they'll try to look at the dude and be like, okay, he shouldn't have been enticed to do something to that woman because he got aroused by how she looked. And I agree with that. But let's not pretend at the same time that women, don't try to look a certain way to get attention. Let's not try to pretend that if you're like in the club or something, and if you showing half your cleavage, or you wearing like a shorter skirt, that you're not trying to get attention. That's just ridiculous. That's the whole point of those sorts of cultures. That's the whole point of trying to attract a male or trying to attract somebody in general. You want to look appealing to whoever you're trying to attract, and that pretend that that's not the point behind it. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, some women do want, like, they go to the club in, very revealing clothing just to get men, and some don't. Some just go to have fun. You don't always have to assume that they did it just for sexual attention or things like that,
That's right.
You just can't assume that always. Otherwise, it's just going to turn out bad every time, and you're always going to blame the woman for it if she gets raped, And that's
That's right.
wrong. That's completely wrong. And that's not what I'm trying to support here, but, some women do go out there to get, men or to get in relationships, and some men don't know if they're there to have fun or not. And that's why they may, get catcalled or talked to, things like that is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree, man. The thing is, they ignore that dudes, have stuff that happens to them too. Like, there have been cases to where dudes have been raped by women through like date rape, drugs, and things like this. This has happened with guys too, and they don't they don't have as big a focus on those cases as they do with women. They don't. I mean, the fact of the matter is, no matter what your gender is, everyone is equally as predisposed to doing sick things as the other.
Yeah.
Was you about to say something?
Yeah. And one of the arguments I was trying to make earlier was that in today's society and in older societies, men or boys were supposed to grow up thinking that they were tough, and that if you cried, you weren't a man and all this other stuff, correct? Like, if you cried, you weren't a man. If you shared your feelings, you weren't a man in old cultural. And if you get raped, in that culture, you wouldn't really be, perceived as a man or perceived as serious, because apparently only women can be raped and not men, and that's the problem. We need to recognize that both men and women can be raped.
That's right.
That's my problem with it.
Yeah, you're right, man. I really do respect the level of education that you have on this on a lot of these issues, man. You seem to have been brought up pretty well.
Mhm. I kind of self-taught myself, and I personally am a very, very logical person, and I also like to recite facts and mostly logic, but I still make good points and I justify them as well.
I
And
think
that's
so too, man. Let me ask you something. Are you a Christian, atheist, agnostic? What are you?
personally, I'm Christian, but you know what? My opinion on the Bible is I don't have to believe everything that it says. Scientists have proven that some of that is wrong, or some of that couldn't have happened, but they're stories to teach us lessons, know? And that's the whole
Uh-huh.
point.
Yes, please.
And I'm not atheist, but if I have the right to believe in my religion, and of course I don't believe every single thing that the Bible says, but there's stories
Uh-huh.
to teach us lessons, like the Native Americans used to teach their kids, not to be greedy and other things like that. That's basically what the
Uh-huh.
Bible is,
Can you
to
provide a
teach
few?
good things, to be good, and what happens to people who aren't good, and all this other stuff.
Right. Okay. And we can have a conversation about that. Actually, did you want to say something, Tech Nutrition?
I was asking if he would like to provide a few examples of which like science has proved anything in the Bible wrong. Just a question. Like I'm not here to like you don't have to have a debate or anything. I just want to hear some examples.
Well, let me just say this: science can't prove ethic, and science can't prove science. Science can't prove that science is real. I
That's
don't know if
right.
I'm real. I don't know if I'm real and everyone else is fake. I don't know if I'm living in a dream world or you guys are and I'm a part of your dream. Science can't prove that. Science just can't. And that's kind of my argument there, is that science can't prove everything. Science can't prove that religion is wrong or religion is right.
Well, agreed, but that's quite a different issue than saying the Bible is. Science has proved certain things in the Bible to be incorrect. I agree with
Yeah,
what you're saying, but you're focusing on another point there.
yeah, I'm sorry. I sometimes counteract my statements, but not everything has to be proven wrong just for it not. Let me rephrase that. If a lot of things are proven wrong about something, it doesn't mean everything is wrong about it. The entire message of the Bible isn't always bad. Some parts you can disagree with, but the total message of the Bible isn't totally wrong. Some people really believe in it. And I'm not,
So,
I'm not trying
Well,
to.
like, what things in the Bible do you really think that were proven wrong?
is there anything you have like one example? Like, what
Um.
have you saw that was proven wrong?
I think a better example would be like what necessarily do you disagree with?
Well,
Like
Yeah,
you.
personally,
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
really believe in the story of Noah's Ark because it just didn't seem plausible to me, and I have every right to believe that, but
Well, it comes down to this question here. Do you believe what Jesus said?
some parts.
What parts do you not believe about what Jesus said? What would be an example of one thing that you don't believe in what Jesus said? Hmm. Some probably happened with his connection or something. I don't know. Maybe something happened with his phone. I don't know.
Probably. I wasn't trying to like get up on him or anything. I was asking
Oh,
some questions.
I know. And I think he understands that as well.
Mm. I just wanted them to like I heard him say something earlier about being able to back up his statements. I just wanted him to be able to support his statements with good reasoning, logic, and all that.
But yeah, he seems like a very logical person. And I think he would be open to hearing those points. I hope he comes back.
Mm.
Antonio,
Yeah, what's up, man?
who is this Jackson person?
He was just a kid that came into the room, and we was just talking about stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, you heard it.
But yeah, it really all comes down to I believe what Jesus said. And if you believe what Jesus said is true, then the whole Bible would necessarily have to be true as well. Because here's the thing, I think and this has been confirmed by a number of theologians and philosophers that literally the entire Bible rests upon life of Jesus Christ and things that He's done. And I believe what Jesus said, and if what Jesus said is true, then it would necessarily follow that everything else is true in the Bible as well.
The only like, actually no, never mind. I don't really know where I was going with that.
But yeah, yeah, that's my centerpiece when uh, dealing with these arguments is what did Jesus say, and did he perform these miracles? Did he claim to be God, and was those claims true? Did he rise from the dead, and all these other sorts of things? And I think if we can give sufficient reasons to back these things up, then we can make a very strong case that that the entire Bible is true, because you see evidence of Jesus throughout the entire Bible, even in the Old Testament, and especially obviously the New Testament.
Hmm.
And like yeah, there's a discussion about when Moses was given the Ten Commandments. Who was he looking at? Because it was said that he was looking at the back of God, and the Bible also says that no one has seen the Father at any time. So if that's the case, and Moses was looking at the back of God, then who could he have been looking at? And I think the answer is he was looking at Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I was gonna say
The,
that's possible.
the,
I had
the,
disconnection problems. I'm sorry.
oh,
Anyway,
it's all good, Jackson.
one of the messages that Jesus said, I can't, quote it exactly from the Bible, but I know it's there. And one of his messages was, pray for those and bless those who have cursed you or have done or mistreated you, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone in their rightful mind someone who has like physically abused you or said all these nasty things to you, and have done all these things to your family, and for like an instance, or to you, you're not gonna just be like, oh, I forgive you, I love you, I'm gonna pray good stuff on you, No
Well,
one's going
well,
Tony,
yeah. Go ahead, man.
except Chris.
I think that's more of a moral issue and actually never mind. Tony, you got this.
Well, yeah, maybe not immediately. You're not just going to just up and just be all forgiving like in the gate. I mean, maybe some people will, but most people, are going to obviously be dealing with the emotional hurt from the pain that's been caused to them. But I mean, you still gotta forgive them, though, because here's the thing, though, man. If you know about the activism of Martin Luther King Jr., a lot of his message was teaching about activism through nonviolence, and the way he went about himself, I think, is similar to how Jesus went about his message as well. And what the things that Martin Luther King said and the things that he did just changed the scope of the culture in the United States forever. And he had some bad things to him. He was put in jail. I mean, people cursed him, said some really messed up stuff about him, put him in jail without cause. They just did a whole bunch of sorts of bad things to him, man. But you know what? He did not react in hatred or any such thing like that. He just kept on talking about equality. And he changed the culture, the framework of the United States, and had an impact on the world. And I think that's a similar way we can go about, dealing with people who do us wrong. Is that you know what? it's going to be hard, and nobody's saying it's easy. It's very, very difficult. But if you believe in what Jesus said, then that's how we are to go about doing things. And
Yeah.
the thing is, Jesus loved his enemies, in spite of the fact that they persecuted him and they cursed him and mocked him. And he even, one of his disciples even chopped off the ear of this dude who was persecuting Jesus. And Jesus rebuked this disciple for doing that, and he literally picked the dude's ear back off the ground and put it back on him.
Yeah.
So,
What I want to point out is, like, can I talk or?
Go ahead, man.
Okay. Sorry, that wasn't supposed to be rude. If that.
No, you get it, man. I know it wasn't rude. Go ahead.
All right. So what I wanted to say is, like you said about like Martin Luther King and leading all the black people for like freedom, right?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't just say just black people, but just trying to promote a culture of equality. Yeah.
I mean, so that's also that made me connect to like the story of Jesus and his disciples. I forgot what they were called in Egypt, who were enslaved for hundreds of years, and then he led them out of there. And that makes you think that, well, not all of his, followers who Jesus supposedly led out of Egypt, forgave the Egyptians for what they did to their people for hundreds of years.
Are you talking about Moses? Because, I mean, Jesus wasn't physically on the earth at the time.
I meant Jesus. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's all good, man. Yeah. But,
You got the message I'm saying.
But what's your point?
Is that I said that hold on. I said that Jesus said bless those or pray for those who mistreated you and have done wrong to you, right?
Sure.
Not all the people Moses led out of Egypt, I'm sure. Not all of them, were like, oh, I forgive the Egyptians for killing many of my people and enslaving us for hundreds of years.
That's right. Many of them weren't.
That's what I mean. I mean, no one right mind is probably going to do that, but
Let me show you something. I'm gonna show you a video that I think that very well illustrates exactly what Jesus meant and how we can go about looking at a lot of things in our own personal lives. Just give me just a sec.
Yep. Is it on? Are we watching it on the live stream?
What's that?
Are we watching it on here or the live stream?
I'm about to just screen share it because.
Okay.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, I don't. The YouTube app is good, but I think it can have its problems. I'm just gonna screen share it.
That's fine.
All right. Now check this out. This is a great story.
79, I think you would have been about 22, you went to a radio debate with Reverend Wade Watts, who was the state leader of the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People, who worked with Martin Luther King. And when you got to this debate, he held out his hand for you to shake.
Yes, he did.
Did you hesitate?
He caught me off guard. See, I'm expecting this black militant to come in with a great big afro this big and an African dashiki on with bones hanging around it and a button on that says I hate honkies and death to crackers, all that stuff. And I figured he'd have on a black...
seriously thought?
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I thought he'd come in there carrying a boom box blaring out the theme from Shaft. I figured he'd flash the switchblade at me and go, black is beautiful, honky. I'm going to kill all you white devils, That's what I thought I was going to see. So when the door opened up and in came Reverend Wade Watts and he's wearing a suit and a tie, and he's carrying a Bible, and he walks up and he puts his hand out to me. He goes, hello there, Mr. Clare. I'm Reverend Wade Watts. I just want to tell you I love you and Jesus loves you. And, I mean, I'm shocked, And then he puts his hand out, and I'm shaking his hand without thinking, because this wasn't what I was expecting. Then I realized I just broke a clan rule, and I jerked my hand back, And I started looking at my hand, which he saw that, and that was met as an insult. The clan rule book says the physical touch of a non-white is pollution. And I thought, I just shook hands with a black person, and he sees me looking at my hand. He goes, don't worry, Johnny, it don't come off. And I start calling him names. I go,
Wow. Yeah, I know what you mean now. Antonio, you there? Excuse me, is anyone there?
Antonio, you there? Can you hear us?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I got what that meant, you know. People who, you know, are religious, you know, will, of course, you know, be forgiving as he did. I'm sorry. Antonio, are you there? Is anyone there? Hello?
I assume he has some problems and he's going to come back sometime soon.
Howdy, everyone.
Hey, Scorpio.
Nope. And I guess he left. Shoot.
I think he's having some problems.
Well, I was listening. Howdy, howdy. Okay, there. Jackson came back in.
Are we all good now? Or what happened to Antonio? Is anyone there? Or
Yeah, we can hear you.
okay. Do you know what happened to Antonio?
I guess he must have had some kind of connection problem. He'll probably be back in a minute.
Yep.
I was listening to what you were saying. There he is. Hey, Antonio.
Well, I didn't even realize my connection went out there.
Yeah.
Oh, let me try this again. My bad. Sorry about that. I'm going to reset the video.
All right, yeah.
I didn't even know.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. What did you say, Scorpio? Welcome to the room, by the way, Scorpio, Vecco.
So, I'm pretty sure all of us, most of us, saw your I got the message. You know, the guy was like, "Yo, I still love you. You're white." You know, it was during that time period when the slavery had ended. And I get your message.
Yeah, I want to show you. Yeah, I want to show you the rest of the video though, because like it went out before it was able to finish. I was just kind of like just skip to like half of it.
There is another really good example too. Robert Rule.
Robert what?
A man named Robert Rule. His daughter Linda, along with the loved ones of many other people, died at the hands of serial killer Gary Ridgway. And he sat there absolutely emotionless while all these other people got up and saying they hope he burns in hell and everything. And then Robert got up there and he forgave him. He said, "This is..."
Yeah.
Yes, he did. I can actually. I can actually post you the video
Post that,
from
and I'll screen
the
share it
actual
after this.
court. And he says, my God, my Jesus tells me to forgive you.
Yeah, I'll post that in the side chat, and I'll screen share it after this.
That's amazing.
Halloween's 4 more months away. I got no trick or treat in here for you. Come back in October, and he goes back in the house.
That's surprised that.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't know how to deal with this, and so the clan goes, "You got any more bright ideas?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I'll tell you what we'll do." So we burned a cross across the street from his house. He came outside and asked us if we needed hot dogs and marshmallows for our barbecue, you know. So finally, I said, "I'm tired of messing with him," and we set fire to his church. And they put the fire out before the church was destroyed. And I remember I called him up and disguised my voice, and I said, "Hey, boy, you better be afraid. We're coming to get you, boy. You don't know who we are, but we know who you are." And he goes, "Hello, Johnny." He goes, "A man like you takes the time to call me. I'm so honored." And all that stuff. He goes, "Let me do something to you." He goes, "Dear Lord, please forgive Johnny for being so stupid. He doesn't mean to be so honored. He's a good boy trying to get out somewhere there." And I hung up the phone on him. I said, "How dare him?" And so the funniest thing that happened with him, though, is I didn't know what to do. And I was at my ropes in. And one day we was watching him, and he went into a restaurant. So we got a bunch of us together, and about 30 of us went in there and surrounded him, and he had this chicken there on the table at the restaurant. And I walked up and I said, "Hey, boy, this restaurant's for white people only. We don't want you here." I said, "So I'm going to make you a promise." I said, "I promise you we're going to do the same thing to you that you do to that chicken. So you think real hard before you touch that chicken." So he looked at me and looked at the clan, and then he picked up the chicken and he kissed it.
Well,
Kissed the chicken. The whole restaurant acted just like y'all did. They all started laughing, you know, and everything. And I looked up, even the
Hold on a sec.
yeah.
Did the video pause? Or was that the end of it?
It's a train coming. I'm gonna mute for a second.
Oh yeah, that's a loud train. Man, sound like you about to get hit by it. Something.
Antonio, did you disconnect again? Antonio?
No, he muted himself because
No, I think he muted because there's a big old train going by. So it's probably a really big train, a long train.
Yeah, that train is really close to where I stay at, and it can be annoying.
I live by railroad tracks too, and they just come.
Anyway, basically, the point is this: he didn't have to resort to violence or anything like that, and because of that, he became a changed man actually. And before that, the racist Klan dude wasn't even a Christian. He became a born-again Christian after that experience.
Wow.
Wow.
That amazes me. That absolutely does. That's awesome.
Yeah.
See, it's not through. It wasn't through no philosophical talk or hyper intellectualism. It was simply, God's supernatural intervention.
That's right, and
that's kind of the faith of the Bible, and that's why.
That's a very important reason why God tells us to love our enemies.
Yeah, which is very hard to do. This is one of the reasons why I'm more convinced of Christianity, is because it tells us to do things that are contrary to our nature. Somebody slaps us on the right cheek, we want to slap them back. But what does Jesus tell us to do? He tells us to do the complete opposite of what our nature wants to do. He says, give, if a person asks you to go 1 mile, you go 2. Who the heck wants to do that on a day off? So.
And check this.
You don't. Yeah, you're right.
I said earlier that the Bible is a bunch of. I don't have to believe every single thing in the Bible, but they're just stories to teach us lessons and things as such.
Now watch this video real quick.
Okay.
I wish for him to have a long, suffering, cruel death. He's gonna go to hell, and that's where he belongs.
But then the emotionless facade finally cracked when the father of one of his victims appeared to surprise him with a dose of human kindness.
Mr. Ridgway, there are people here that hate you. I'm not one of them. You made it difficult to live up to what I believe, and that is what God says to do, and that's to forgive. You are forgiven, sir.
Yeah, it's hard, man.
That
Dude,
is,
Antonio, man, this is just what I need to head back to work, man. Wow.
Man, thanks for coming, brother.
Yeah,
Thank you.
my break is up, so but I gotta head back, man. I'm glad that I got a chance to check out these video clips that you showed, man. So praise God.
Praise
Well,
God.
God bless.
Gracious breakfast.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, man. God bless you.
All right, God bless you.
Wow.
And that's one of many examples which has happened in real life that it shows us why it's so important for us to love our enemies, even when it may be hard for us to do.
Yeah, that amazed me. I mean, I didn't expect him to do that, but that's the faith of the Bible, and that's what Christianity teaches. And Catholicism and most, religions that rely on the Bible teach you to forgive and love.
Well, yeah, you got a number of different belief systems that teach good things, but there's nothing that comes in close to comparison of what Jesus taught. Now, in very, very rare systems, I don't even know any other system at all that tells you to love your enemies. I don't know any other besides Christianity where that even exists.
I don't either, and that's why a lot of people, are Christian or Catholic, and the Vatican is like a huge Catholic city because of this one book and these stories of this one man who did all these miracles and all these things to teach us to love and be good. And that's just, the way of the Bible, and that's spectacular.
Yeah, but the important thing is that the reason why Jesus died for us is because we have a fallen nature, we have a sinful nature, and we, after this life is over, it's going to be the judgment. And without the sacrifice that Jesus made for us, none of us has any hope of any sort of life in heaven. We have like no hope whatsoever. And the only thing that waits for us after this life is eternal separation from God. And he paid the price so we wouldn't have to endure that. He paid the price so we would have a chance to avoid hell and be part of his kingdom forever, to love and worship him. And he didn't have to do it. He really did not. Just as that man did not have to forgive the dude that murdered his family and friends. That dude didn't have to be gracious to that dude that was racist against him and burned his church and everything. But if Jesus did the same thing for us, if he forgave us and gave his life up for us, then we have no business not forgiving others and following his example.
Jesus sacrificed himself to save so many others.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's kind of another message that it sort of teaches us, be a hero, save people, spread the word of God, and
not
save
really
many people from the lake of fire.
Not just be a hero, but just understand that that Jesus, that we were created for God's pleasure and for us to worship Him, and it's important for us to be submissive to His will. That's why the Bible always says, "Let His will be done, not our own." We were made for that very express purpose to worship God, and in man's rebellion, we sinned against Him, and we separated ourselves from Him, and because of that, sin was brought into the world, and because of that, you got people today who want to do their own thing. You got people today who just want to spit in God's face. You got people today who want to be like, you know what? I don't want to be held accountable for my actions. I don't want to be. I don't want to have to, have this deity or this God to serve or to worship because I want to live my own life. I want to do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes down to if you think man ultimately has the answers to this life, or do you believe that God has the answer? Or more importantly, do you believe that God is the answer, not that God just has the answer? And I think a whole lot of, I'm not going to say that all people who believe in abortion are believers in Jesus and whatnot, because you even will have atheists who are pro-life, believe it or not. I know several of them, but for the most part, I think a whole lot of people who support abortion, most of them are atheists.
Yeah.
And
And I
there's an
don't support abortion. I hate it.
oh, absolutely, man. And there is an undeniable correlation with being pro-choice or being pro-abortion, because I don't think there's nothing that's really choice about it other than personal selfishness. I believe there's a very strong correlation between that and just the lack of belief in God,
Mm-hmm.
because of course one is going to be more easily prone to supporting a right for a woman to kill her own child if they deny God, if they deny an ultimate authority.
Yeah.
That's just what we can see.
Abortion is the choice whether to let an innocent life live or kill one that can't defend itself.
Yep. All these. Go ahead.
Oh no, I didn't say anything. I coughed.
Oh, okay, but yeah, all these arguments about choice and the unborn is a parasite or parasitic. What if the woman's life is in danger? What about rape? All these are just distractions. This is what these arguments are. They don't truly use these arguments because they care about. It's not so much that they even find these arguments relevant, but the fact of the matter is if they truly believe these arguments were the only relevant ones to justify abortion, then they wouldn't think that abortion should be legal outside of them. They'd be like, okay, look, I see abortion as a messed up thing, and I think it should only be legal in these particular cases. But the fact of the matter is, most of them don't see that. Most of them just see it as a convenient way to emotionally manipulate the conversation. And will shamefully exploit these things to cover up for the fact that they just truly believe at the heart of the matter that they don't want to be responsible for their own actions. And they want to use abortion as a way out whenever a child is conceived in the womb, which they're not ready for at that particular time.
Yeah, and a lot of women are actually scared of having the feeling of giving a baby, and they can just have C-sections, which is a way that a lot of children are born where the girl doesn't have to feel anything, when they're put under. But you know what? You can't have baby fat because I don't want that. Who do you think you are?
But you would be surprised at how many mothers actually very much value the nurturing concept of pregnancy.
Mhm.
It's not you'll have all these radical feminists, these third wave feminists make you believe that all these women, you know, are just anti or just anti nurturing, so to speak, or that they are looking at all these dangers and all these risks in pregnancy and saying that okay, I should be able to have the choice to avoid all these dangers and whatnot. But the fact is, you will find overwhelming majority of women who don't want to kill their child, who don't
Mhm.
see that as a viable option, because I think it's practically hardwired into most women to be nurturing, to be protective of their children. And I think most women understand that there is a child there, and I think a lot of women understand that they'll do whatever um they'll go through whatever to bring that child into the world. They'll go
Yeah.
through they'll put their life on the line for their children, no matter what.
Yeah.
I think most
And
women
Neil,
understand that. What's up?
I gotta go for like 10 minutes to do something real quick. I'll be right
All
back,
right,
okay?
dude.
Like
All
10
right, dude.
minutes.
Sounds good.
Alright, see you
All right,
in
man.
10 minutes. Bye.
Yep. But yeah, this is what this hangout was about. Was just trying to cut through the BS and the nonsense and just get to the heart of the issue. Because I have dealt with these arguments for a long time, and I know the weaknesses in all of them. But it gets to a point to where you just like, man, this is stupid. Okay, just addressing these arguments is just dumb because if you have a certain agenda or a certain goal, just make it obvious what it is. My agenda and goal is to fight on behalf of just human protection in general, and I believe the unborn should be a part of that. And an underlying part of why I do this is because I truly believe in the things that Jesus Christ said. Jesus said that what you have done for the least of these, you've done for me. And I'm not ashamed to admit that a big part of why I fight for the unborn so much is because I do believe in what Jesus Christ said, and I do it to and I do my part to praise Him and worship Him. I think protecting these young ones just from the slaughter of this evil of abortion, you know, if God will look upon me and say, "What you have done for the least of these, you've done for me," then I want to praise God in that way, and I want to honor God in that way, and do my activism. I want people to come to the message of the cross, the person who Jesus was, and that is the heart of why I fight for the unborn. That is the underlying message of why I do what I do, and I have no problem admitting that. Now, the ball's in the court of Pro-Aborts to be honest about the heart of why they fight for the issue. And I just don't think they're being serious when they talk about stuff like a woman's body and unborn a person or a human and all this other garbage. Let's not just tiptoe around the issue. If you just think a woman should have the right just to kill your kid just so you can have sex all day and get your rocks off, then just be honest about it. just come correct, come real about it. Don't play these stupid games. Well, that's what they are. They're just a bunch of dumb games to try to dance around the real issue. I mean, there ain't no argument that I've seen that they can use to justify abortion. Not a single one. It ain't out there. Not a single case they can exploit to justify abortion. Not one. And Pro-Aborts don't like the fact that I just cut through the BS and just cut to the core heart of the issues. I'm one of the most hated pro-lifers on Facebook. I've had literally 2 whole pages made about me to mock me and to hate against me. But you know what? I don't care. I don't care about your feelings. I care about telling the truth. All right? And the truth is, you don't have a right to kill your kid just because it inconveniences you, just because you're not ready to have a kid at that time, or because you want to fulfill your your sexual rocks all the time, and you just want to have sex without consequences. You can try to justify it a million ways all you want to, but you're not going to be able to do it. And you're not going to be able to pull the curtain over my eyes. You're not going to be able to fool me with the BS. And that's what I do. I like to just take the nonsense out of the equation, take the emotion out of the equation, take the BS out of the equation. They don't want to be honest about why they really promote what they promote. And I think the ones who actually are honest are the ones that usually sound at the most sick with it. Like, you have these people who will literally make jokes about killing, unborn babies, like making all these stupid, sick memes about dead babies and cooked babies and all sorts of other foul and disgusting things. These are the people that are actually the most honest about, what they believe and why they believe it. And I'd much rather you be honest about why you truly believe what you believe than to waste my time giving me BS.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good, man.
Just family stuff. Anyways.
Yeah, it's all good, bro.
What were we talking about again?
Yeah, I was just talking about just cutting through the BS of these arguments. Because let me ask you something, Jackson. You come across do you go to public school? Or you homeschool or what?
I go to a local public school. It's in Adams 12 district. I live in Colorado. Not going to exactly.
You don't have to give me direct details or anything like that, because I mean, if you have certain views and you let certain things be known, I don't want people coming after you on the net or nothing like that. But anyway, do you have like people that you go to school with in your age group who have engaged themselves in the topic of abortion? Do you have any like pro-choice people around your age group or anything like that?
Well, I know this one girl. She's my ex, and personally, I think she's a total, psycho sometimes. Her name's No. She's like a radical feminist. She's like, we live in a rape culture. She told me this at school. We live in a rape culture. I'm like, no, we don't. And I was like, why do we live in a rape culture? All this stuff. And then she's like, whatever. You don't understand. You're not a woman. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh,
besides that,
they trying to get them young, man. I hear women that are like 40 plus years old use those same arguments all the time.
Yeah. There's also this other kid. His name is Braden Jones. He's like my friend, and we go talking about Trump against anti-Trump people, and we basically like stump them and try to change their point of views on it. I don't think he's up currently, but he might be tomorrow, I think.
Yeah. So do you Yeah. What grade are you going to, man?
I'm actually in the 6th grade. I'm going into 7th, but I'm a 7th grader now, but I'm going into
Okay.
7th.
Okay, that sounds about right. I remember when I was 12, man. Yeah, for a long time, I've always liked to talk about the issues and politics and things like this, but the one issue that's always hit the closest home to me is the topic of abortion, because
Mhm.
I actually believe in a few exceptions of abortion, like rape or incest or a mother's life being threatened. But like one day, I actually heard an argument to where I was told, like, yeah, it's messed up that a woman gets raped and she conceives a child, but why should the child have to die for the sins of the father? Because the father was a bastard. Why should the child be killed for it? And when I heard that for the first
I
time, I was
know.
like, well, I agree. And then when I heard that, I changed my mind, and even then, I was against abortion then. So it only took me one time to hear that to change my position. And I think
Yeah,
a whole lot. Go ahead.
it's not like the baby has to pay for something someone else did. Someone else's choice doesn't mean it has to affect the baby who has to die for it. There's a big difference between rape and death. Which one's worse? You tell me. Antonio, you there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here. The thing is, man, I mean, you can care about both. Why not care about both? And there's a whole lot of people who want to see the best for both people. Like I know a lady. I'm not gonna put her name out there or nothing like that, but I know a lady when she was 18 years old who conceived and raped, and like now her son is what 23, 24 years old. Very good person, very productive member of society, very strongly pro-life, and she would not change it for the world. And she had people that cared about her and about what happened to her, and they brought her through her horrific ordeal, and now she has a boy that she loves to death. That she wouldn't change her experience for the world, and you know, and she hates the fact that people exploit cases like hers to justify killing their children,
Mhm.
and she raped to justify killing because she was raped herself, and she knows what it's like firsthand, and she knows it's hard, and she knows it's tough, but there are people out there that care, and there are people out there that are willing to help you care for um, you and the child you conceive. Because you know what? If you end up in a really messed up situation like that, but you have people that love you and support you and will do whatever they can to help you and your child, and you'd be like, you know what? I don't care. Screw all that. I'm gonna still kill my child anyway. Then you really can't blame rape at that point.
No, you
That's
can't. You can't blame rape.
Yep.
Good, good can come out of bad, and good can come out of evil. Someone did something wrong, like rape you, but you got an awesome, child that loves you
Yeah,
and
man.
people who love you, people who helped you more than ever in your life, and you have to be thankful for that.
Yeah, man. And yeah, nobody is not asking anybody to raise the child, but I know of I've known about hundreds, maybe even thousands of cases of women who weren't ready to have a child, who gave their child up to a loving family, and their child is thankful for the fact that their mother made that choice. That that's the most loving choice you can make. If you're not ready to raise a kid at a certain point, the most loving thing you can do Just give that child up to a loving family.
Yeah,
I
that's
know a lady.
the best thing you can do
Yeah, I
if
know
you
another lady.
can't take care of it. But
Yeah, I know another lady because they got two types of adoption called closed adoption and open adoption. Closed adoption is basically where you give the baby up and you really don't see the child after that. Um, Maybe you don't have as much access to it, and it's pretty much that's a wrap. But with open adoption, you can actually have open communication with the family that you give the child to, and you get to see the child, and you get to interact every now and again with with your child and with another family.
that's
And
that's
go ahead.
cool.
Oh yeah. And my friend who also I won't name on the air, but she engaged in open adoption when she, got into a situation to where she found out she was pregnant and she was scared, but she sought open adoption, and she would never ever change that decision for the world. And her child is being raised by a very loving family who she's in regular contact with, and she gets to see her daughter all the time, and these people are like our best friends. Like they're basically like another family. Like as if she had grew up with these people herself, as if she known them her entire lives. And it's such an amazing story, and she wouldn't change it for the world. In fact, she her daughter was able to be the flower girl in her wedding, and her adoptive family was there and everything, and it was just so awesome, man.
Yeah, it makes me kind of teary.
Yeah.
You
And I
know.
mean, there's many experiences like this that'll just be missed, and many things like this that just will just go, just uh, just just killed off if you just stick in your selfishness and say, you know what, I don't care about nothing or anything else. I only care about me. I'm gonna kill this child, and that's just gonna be the end of it. And that's just really sad, man. That just comes from a very dark place and a very sad place.
Well, should both the doctor who performed the abortion and the mother be charged if it, if it becomes a law where it's illegal or,
Yep,
wrong?
I do. I believe
Both
that.
charged, or just the mother, or just the doctor?
I think they both should be, because I mean the bottom line is everyone knows that killing a child is wrong. Period. Whether the child is
Yeah.
born, everybody knows that. And to pretend otherwise is just being intellectually dishonest. And I think we should treat it, as if a child was born and they killed the child. I think the same sort of thing should happen if they participated in the killing of the child before the child was born. And we should treat every individual case by case basis. I mean, it's just like we don't treat every case the same. If killing that happens, I mean, you have a person that's a serial killer, then you have a person that never killed anybody in their life who went and killed somebody, maybe because the husband or wife cheated, and then they was mad and scorned, and they killed somebody. But there's a number of different cases of killing and murder that happen, and they're all treated, on a case by case basis, but they're still treated with punishment under the law. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the same sort of reasoning should happen with the unborn. Treat them all as individual, case by case basis, but the punishment should still be there.
Yeah. I mean, how can you live with, if you have an abortion, how can you live with having that on your conscience forever? Killing an innocent child who couldn't defend themselves, who had no opportunity to, present themselves and, say, I have a right to live. You can't control my death. You can't keep saying, oh, you know, I have the right to kill you, so therefore, you're gonna die. And, the kid can't justify himself and say, you know what, I can live. But no, it doesn't happen in this country, and that really does need to change.
Yeah, but that's the thing. A lot of people can't, man.
Mm. It's unbelievable and really, really, really sad. I
Yeah,
don't know
man.
how people, can live with that on their conscience forever, knowing that they, killed an innocent, creature that was yours, maybe
Mm.
by accident, I don't know, but you killed someone, you killed something that could have been great.
Oh yeah, and it gets even worse, man. They try to twist it to a whole lot of things. Like you'll have, and you, I tell you just how twisted this logic and thinking gets. Sometimes they'll have such a desperation. Oh, he dropped out. Hopefully he comes back. Anyway, but sometimes they'll have such a desperation to justify their sick thinking that they'll even. It was a lady who literally wrote a love letter to I don't know if she got the abortion or was going to abort, but either way, she actually wrote a love letter about abortion. And wrote this love letter saying that man, it was so sick. Talking about me getting this decision or getting this decision. I'm doing this out of love, of a love letter abortion. It was absolutely disgusting. And she was acknowledging the child that she was killing or that she killed or was gonna kill. She acknowledged that her child and was trying to fabricate this in a loving context. And you had all these pro-aborts running around talking about how brave she was and just how amazing she was. Oh man, it was just sick. But you, the mindset of these people is just beyond. Oh man, I, I it's disgusting. It's beyond that. They'll try to do have they'll say stuff like abortion is taking responsibility though. I mean, do you want that child to have a hard life? Do you want that child to uh you know not be loved by the parents or anything like that? And you know what? Nobody's actually making the argument that a child may not have a good life or things may not go so well. We don't know that. We don't know one way or the other. But shouldn't you let that person, that child, have the right to decide that, not you? You should not take that right away from them. They'd be like, well, my mother allowed me to be born, and she had the choice to kill me. So if she would have killed me in the womb, I wouldn't have remembered. No, wait, well, that's just dumb because we don't use that sort of logic when the baby's born. Like, I mean, who honestly remembers when they were an infant, or if they experienced any pain or any suffering when they were an infant? Nobody remembers and knows that when they were literally an infant. Okay, they'll be like, well, if I was killed as an infant, I wouldn't know, or wouldn't remember, and I wouldn't care. Nobody uses that argument at all. The fact that you don't know or remember ain't got nothing to do with nothing. That's just stupid. So here's a couple stories here. Um, oh, okay, that was the discussion we was talking about earlier. Yeah, I didn't mean the discussion to get way off course from what I originally made this hangout for, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just
and I'm not meaning to derail the talk here. It just there's more than just the example that you brought up and the one that I had posted earlier. There's a number of them, but it takes an awful lot of faith for somebody to forgive someone who's killed a member of their family.
oh yeah,
which
man.
which I guess could also be applied to the father, of the situation where the girl wants the abortion and the father would rather she keep it,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's
So
very real. In many ways, that can be directly tied to our discussion. Yeah, man.
That's what I'm saying is that's at least that could be directly connected to the present discussion, right? So
Oh yeah, I agree. Um, but there's a level of the whole paradigm comes down to this. It comes down to where do you where does your mind and your heart lie? Is it one of selfishness and self-centeredness and just arrogance, narcissism, or is it one of loving, responsibility? Do you put others before yourself? Do you um, have a loving nature? Do you believe that it's not about you, or not just about you, or that there's an issue that's bigger than you? And that's really the whole paradigm divide when you're dealing with issues like these, like forgiveness and abortion. It ultimately comes down to, do you believe the situation is bigger than you? If you don't, then you're going to be less forgiving, and you're going to be more likely to justify things like abortion. But if you do believe these things are bigger than you, then you're more likely to err on the side of life. I can't imagine a situation to where, I don't really think there is a possible situation to where you can think the issue is bigger than you, but yet um, fall on the side of abortion. I just don't see a way where that can happen. Maybe you have pro-aborts that try to twist it like, well, that's why I believe in choice, because I believe everyone should have the right to make their decision. So in that sense, it is bigger than me. But okay. But if you're gonna ignore the fact that a human being or person is killed, then you can make that same argument about slavery and be like, well, the slaves at the time of slavery, they believe every person should have the choice to own a slave, and the issue is bigger than them. You can make that same kind of argument for any of those things, to where a human was dehumanized and non-personalized, and when it's involving killing other people without due process, you can't really say that you're making an argument that's bigger than you. You're making an argument that's bigger than you for other people to kill people without due process. That's just stupid. When you truly believe it's something that's bigger than you, it'll be something that's equal benefit to everyone, and something that you would do without arguing your personal issues, to say that your personal opinion should determine whether this human being or entity should have the right to live, or the mercy of the person in which they life should be decided by. So it all comes down to, do you think this issue is bigger than you? Do you think it goes beyond you? And a lot of pro-aborts don't want to acknowledge that. They just think it's their way or the highway. I think a very substantial amount of them, and I don't shy away from saying this, I think a very substantial amount of them only do care about getting their sexual rocks off, and they don't want to take your responsibility. They want to have rights without responsibilities. I think a substantial amount of them do only care about getting their sexual rocks off, and then they use abortion as a way to have a way out, when things don't go the way that they plan. And again, I don't shy from saying that, and I don't give a damn how many get offended by it. I don't care because they don't want to be told that. But you know what? If real change is going to be made, if real responsibility is going to happen, then these things have to be told. And I think a whole lot of people, avoid, saying these things because they're afraid of offending people. They're afraid of ruffling feathers. They're afraid of stepping on a few toes. And I don't give a crap. I'll more than willing step on a few toes. I'll step on some toes to save lives. And that's what it comes down to for me. I don't care about stepping on a few toes because you're not gonna die about me stepping on your toes. But my opinion ain't gonna kill you. I ain't gonna result in you being dead. Yours is going to result in someone else being dead, and that's the difference between us. If I end up stepping on your toes for that to happen, then so be it. Get over it. Yeah, I just want to get to the point to where we take all the nonsense out of it. We take all the um the just beating around the bush type of thinking out of it. We're gonna get to a point of common sense and honesty about these things. They try to, man. I think that it's a lot of what we're seeing in when people justify things like abortion. It's the same type of nonsense that has happened throughout history. It's the same type of crap that originated in the garden with Adam and Eve. The devil tried to bring this sort of philosophy to them that, oh, you'll be like gods, and shouldn't you shouldn't you have the right to know or the right to be in the know? You be like gods, or you'll know good and evil. Even in the garden, he was trying to build this sort of philosophical sort of basis to justify certain actions, to justify rebellion. And that's the same kind of thinking that we have today, is that they try to have this philosophical basis to justify killing innocent human beings. They wanted to, the devil wanted to deceive them to rebel against God. And now we have people that want to deceive others to kill human beings and try to fabricate that on the basis of these just pseudo intellectual arguments. They want to twist science or ignore science. And you know what? Now that I mentioned that, I want to show this video of these pro-aborts, actually representatives from Planned Parenthood, literally ignoring science. See, Planned Parenthood, science. Yes, this is crazy. I'm gonna screen share this and let y'all take a look at this. But yeah, it's called Planned Parenthood Declares War on Science.
We are not going to try to use science or evidence. The fact of the matter is that this is opinion. We all have our own beliefs as far as when human life begins. Science is not ultimate truth. That's why it's science. It's always being studied. It's always being taught and retaught and rearticulated. So to insinuate that this science is absolute truth on a matter of what is human life is illegitimate. What is inside of body that cannot function outside its host is not a child. It's a matter of reproductive choice. The living, breathing, sentient being that has control over her body is the one that we listen to, not science. Science cannot be applied to my body.
I think we're talking about science as if it's something that is absolutely concrete. There is absolute proof that there is, life and there is not life and all this stuff like that. There's people from this side, from their researchers that say.
But y'all notice how they contradict themselves in one side of their mouth and on the other side of their mouth. They're trying to say that science doesn't matter and blah blah blah. Then they want to use terms like host and whatnot. Like, why would they try to act like they're appealing to sort of a scientific framework when they use terms like host and whatnot? It's fine to try to use science in that sort of aspect, but then you want to throw it out the window when it contradicts or conflicts with your personal worldviews.
The heart beats in 21 days. There's people on our side of research that says that the heart doesn't beat until 24 weeks. And so it is completely different.
We need to focus on the birth control issue, and that's what you need to be thinking about, rather than any of the photos or scientific evidence that Nate just gave you.
I have a cold, so to say that. I have a virus in my body, and that's also something little and living inside of me. But if I'm going to try and kill it, I'm not going to be like, oh no, woe is the virus thing, and I just killed a life. It's not something it's not the same thing.
Anyone who's born with an X and a Y chromosome is biologically female.
You say an X and a Y chromosome is a female?
Yeah. These are the type of people that we're dealing with, man.
Okay, they mentioned something about research on their side. Now, because of the topic, I'd like to think that necessarily assumed that there was some sort of science going on their side. Because there was research happening.
You see how they try to talk about facts and science and this and that when they try to argue for their position, but when it seems to go against theirs, then they throw science out the window. This is an argument about opinion.
I'm trying to figure out what else they said, like right before that.
Yeah, like, well, here's the thing. They said that crap about like a virus living inside them, and they fallaciously compared it to the unborn.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Okay, whether it's different or not, I'm pretty sure like that's biology. There's some science in there. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. You see how they appeal to science in a way to twist it and use it for their argument. Well, it's science that there's a virus living inside my body, and I'm not gonna be like, well, I'm just doing something by killing it. And then when it's science that goes against their views, then they want to throw it out the window. They're moving the goalposts is what they're doing.
I know. I could tell.
They want to like cherry pick and choose and argue all these double standards. It's just, oh man, it's just, wow. I don't even know what to say. It's just horrible, man. But like, I would rather all these people just come out and be like, look, all right. I think on a certain level that they were being honest, that it's not about science, it's only about their personal opinions. But then again, they went to dishonesty. Then they tried to appeal to science on one side and then not the other. So they started out being honest and then went to being dishonest that quickly.
Now, I myself am no scientist by any means, but I'd like to think that I know what science is when I see it. And they definitely used science in their arguments.
Yeah, they did, and they twisted it horribly because a virus has is not even remotely comparable to the unborn in the womb. A virus isn't going to have human DNA. All right, it's not going to grow and develop like a human being. No, it's not. It's not going to have uh, DNA from the mother and father. That's not how it works.
Also, I think a virus is like supposed to harm you. I don't see how a human being does the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Viruses. I think I don't. I'm not sure if there are. I've heard of like helpful bacteria and things like this, but I'm not sure if I heard of helpful viruses. I'm not really sure about that. But I mean, even that's beside the point. The nature of a virus and the unborn are clearly different for very obvious reasons.
Yeah, I know.
And you're not gonna sit up here and be like, uh, killing a virus or trying to stop a virus is the same thing. That's just stupid. Because if that was, it's the same stupid type of argument they try to be like, well, sperm is technically living, but people masturbate, and they're not gonna say, well, you're engaging in like genocide and whatnot. It's stupid. And you know, women miscarry all the time. I mean, unfortunately. But are you gonna say, and women, experience horrific pain when they miscarry a child usually, and it's not something that should be taken lightly. So you're gonna say that the dude who masturbated is the same as the woman who miscarried and lost a child? Are you really gonna make that argument? I mean, if that's gonna be the case, then are dudes who masturbate and miscarrying, or that's just dumb. They know there's a difference.
There is. It's obvious. They just don't want to admit it.
hmm Women don't, grieve and and just deal with the horrific emotional loss because they're not dealing with the loss of a child. All right, or they're trying to kill out a virus or something in their body, or trying to get rid of a tumor or whatever. They deal with that because they intrinsically know the child, and it's tough. But you can't put that in the same category as a dude masturbating. You can't. There's intrinsic obvious an obvious intrinsic difference there.
You see, while like sperm cells technically like have life, again, that's very technical.
I mean, it's a you what you have is sperm gametes and egg gametes, um and they encompass 50% of the genetic blueprint. Until you have those meet in fertilization, you're not dealing with a human being. That's just scientific fact. That's the reason why they're not even the same.
Also, I'm pretty sure, again, not certain on this, but I'm pretty sure they like die off after a certain period anyway, even if you don't masturbate.
Yeah, they do. Exactly.
So like, even if you don't masturbate, it's by their logic, is a mass genocide happening or a mass death happening.
Just by being alive. It's just stupid. It's really dumb, man. And then they'll try to be like, well, a lot of fertilized eggs, a lot of eggs that get fertilized are naturally expelled by the body. You know, but so what? That doesn't mean you can intentionally kill a human being just because the body may do it, spontaneously. You can't compare the uncontrolled, spontaneous, killing with an active, intentional killing. It's not the same thing. No, a 2-year-old child who's got a terminal cancer can passively die from it, but that's not the same thing as saying, hey, the child is going to die from this terminal cancer, so I'm going to take a .38 caliber gun and shoot the kid to death. They know it's not the same thing. Passive death is not the same thing as active intentional killing. It ain't the same thing. Just because you may have a result that may be the same death doesn't mean the means to that end is the same. And it's very relevant. And that's what they try to do. They try to avoid the means to the end. They try to think, all they're thinking about is the end and not the means to the end. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The means are very, very relevant. They think, there's natural expulsion or natural miscarriages, bam, I should be able to kill intentionally whenever I want, or for whatever reason I want. And that's just stupid. You can't make a bogus connection and a bogus extrapolation from that. Because you could do the same thing. We should be able to do the same thing, with terminal cancers, and killing however we wish, taking a gun and shooting somebody to death, or, maybe lethal injection, whenever we feel like it, or any sort of means of death. If they're going to really talk about that, the only thing that's relevant is the end and not the means. It's a saying that goes that the ends don't justify the means. Just because you may want to, achieve a certain end or look for a certain end, don't mean the means to which you wanted to achieve and look for it are justified. Yeah, the end, there may be a case to where we don't know how to deal with a certain sickness, and the child may more than likely die from like a terminal illness of some sort, or anybody for that matter. But that doesn't mean that we, can just jump to, being able to justify the intentional taking of their lives. And that just goes back into what I was saying earlier. It's just, a way for them to exploit these horrific cases to justify their nonsense. And they're not being honest about it. They're just trying to just piggyback off these horrific circumstances for their views. They're not appealing to the real reasons why they support abortion. They're not being like, well, hey, I don't think this unborn should have a right to live, and I believe a woman should be able to kill her if she wants to. I don't care about personal responsibility. I want to raise this kid, and I'm going to take this kid out because, I got things I'm personally more concerned with in my life. Since my goals and my dreams and whatever sexual pleasure I want to, be involved in, that's my business. And this kid ain't going to get in the way, and I'm going to take this kid out whether you like it or not. But I don't think we're going to see that kind of brutal honesty most of the time. And I'd much rather see that than for them to make up these dumb arguments and dance around the issue. I got mute for a sec. Yeah, they want to say stuff like, "Well, I'm pro choice, not pro abortion." Nonsense. Um, that would be like in times of oppressive slavery. If someone was like, "Well, I'm pro choice, not pro slavery." I personally wouldn't own a slave, no, but I ain't gonna take away their right or choice to own one. That's just stupid. And there are certain permitted practices in Sharia law that permits legal rape. Like, who would be like, well, you know what? I'm pro-choice, not pro-rape. I personally don't condone rape or anything like that, but I'm not gonna take away the man's legal right to do it. It's another stupid point. It's just all these distractions and whatnot. It's just pathetic. It's just laughable. They don't want to be for real about it. Let's see. I was hoping more people would come in and actually discuss this issue, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen, unfortunately. So I'm probably just going to go ahead and end this hangout. So to those who've been watching on the outside, I really appreciate your time watching. Um, just wait till the next hangout to see if anyone comes. But again, just thanks for watching. Comment and subscribe. Have a good one.